The god that was never born. There is no sound at first. Not wind, not machinery, not even the distant thunder of war that defines this galaxy. Only silence, thick, suffocating, ancient. You stand upon a dead forge world, its skies locked in perpetual ash, its cities frozen in rusted reverence. Before you rises a titan, not moving, not breathing, waiting. Its shadow stretches across kilometers of broken ground, blotting out what little light remains. You feel smaller than you have ever felt before. Not merely insignificant, but unnecessary. As though the world itself would continue without noticing if you vanished beneath its metal feet. This is not a machine. You know that instinctively. The Titan looms like a god carved from steel and prayer. Its armor etched with scripture older than empires. Its cannon silent but heavy with remembered annihilation. Every surface hums with restrained violence, as if the act of standing still is an effort of will. You feel it watching. Not with eyes, but with something deeper, older, a presence pressing against the edges of your thoughts, slow and vast like a continent shifting beneath an ocean. The Adeptus Mechanicus would tell you this is holy. They would call it a miracle of engineering, a triumph of mankind's genius over extinction. They would not tell you what it costs, because titans are not built, they are fed. Somewhere deep within this towering form, past layers of adamantium, ceramide, and sanctified circuitry, there is a throne. Not a seat of command, but an altar. Cables snake like arteries, interfaces pierce flesh that no longer remembers the shape of freedom. A human mind sits there, or what remains of one, bound, broken, expanded beyond sanity, a soul offered to something too vast to care. You feel a chill not from the air, but from the realization pressing into you with quiet certainty. This god machine is alive because someone was sacrificed to it, not metaphorically, literally. A life entombed, a will overridden, an identity dissolved into function. The Mechanicus whispers prayers to keep the Titan calm, not because it might malfunction, but because it might remember. The echoes of rage, of fear, of countless battles layered upon one another, bleeding together inside a consciousness stretched far past human limits. And still, the Titan waits. Because it must. Because the galaxy demands it. You ask yourself the question no tech priest ever answers aloud. Is this a weapon, or is it a prison so vast it needs a god's body to contain its suffering? In the stillness of the dead forge world, surrounded by statues that were never meant to sleep, you sense the truth settling in like ash. Titans are not symbols of humanity's dominance. They are confessions of its fear. And every time one awakens, something human dies again. The silence does not last. It never does, because this galaxy cannot afford stillness. Beyond the dead forge world, beyond the resting titans and their dormant hunger, the universe churns in endless hostility. Stars burn themselves hollow. Warp storms scream without sound. Entire civilizations flicker into existence and vanish again, erased so completely that even memory refuses to acknowledge them. This is a galaxy where survival is not earned through balance or restraint, but through excess. Excessive force, excessive sacrifice. You feel the scale of it pressing down on you, not as knowledge, but as weight. Humanity is everywhere, and nowhere at once, scattered across 1,000,000 worlds, each clinging to life in ways both ingenious and grotesque. Every planet is a battlefield waiting to happen. Every moment of peace is only a pause between catastrophes. The Imperium does not endure because it is righteous. It endures because it is brutal enough to refuse extinction. And in such a universe, small weapons are not enough. Human soldiers break. Armies falter. Planets fall screaming into darkness. So humanity builds answers the size of mountains. Titans exist because the galaxy makes mercy impossible. They are not tools of conquest born from arrogance, but monuments to desperation. When Xenos hordes blot out suns. When demon legions tear reality, open from within. When rebellion festers across continents in hours, not years. Humanity responds not with negotiation, but with walking annihilation. A Titan does not win wars, it ends them. You begin to understand the paradox at the heart of the Imperium. Official doctrine denies gods, faith is regulated. Worship is weaponized but never admitted. Humanity claims to stand alone, master of its own destiny, guided only by reason, discipline, and the Emperor's distant will. And yet, it builds gods anyway. Gods of steel, gods of fire, gods that stride across cities and crush history beneath their feet. Titans are prayed to, appeased, feared. Their arrival on a battlefield is treated as divine intervention. Entire regiments kneel as they pass, not out of reverence alone, but because something in the air demands submission. A pressure settles in the chest, a certainty that resistance is meaningless. You feel it now, even in memory. The way logic bends around these machines, the way belief fills the gaps where understanding fails. The Adeptus Mechanicus stands at the center of this contradiction. They are not merely engineers, they are priests of function. To them, knowledge is sacred not because it enlightens, but because it preserves. Innovation is heresy. Discovery is dangerous. The past is perfection, and the present exists only to maintain it. Within their red-robed orders, Titans are not machines to be improved. They are relics to be sustained. Each one carries a lineage older than most star systems. Each one has a name spoken with ritual gravity. Each one is treated less like a weapon and more like a slumbering deity whose favor must be earned. The Mechanicus knows what dwells inside them. They simply choose not to speak it. Because if humanity truly acknowledged what Titans are, what they require, then the moral foundation of the Imperium would fracture. Survival would no longer look like heroism. Victory would no longer feel justified. You sense the truth hovering just beneath the surface of every litany and prayer. Titans are a necessary sin, a choice made long ago, repeated endlessly, because there is no alternative left that does not end in extinction. The galaxy does not care about ethics. The warp does not reward restraint, and enemies of mankind do not hesitate. So humanity builds gods, then pretends they are only machines. And somewhere deep within every Titan, something listens, waiting for the moment it will be unleashed again. Long before the Imperium learned to pray for survival, humanity once believed it could understand the universe. In those forgotten ages, buried beneath millennia of war, dogma, and deliberate erasure, technology was not feared. It was explored, mastered, pushed forward with reckless confidence. Humanity walked among the stars not as a desperate species clinging to relics, but as architects of its own ascent. It was then that the first Titans were conceived, not as gods, not even as weapons, but as answers. You sense the ambition of that era like a distant echo, vast, luminous, and tragically naive. Worlds were being settled faster than they could be defended. Alien threats emerged from voids uncharted. Environmental catastrophes dwarfed human engineering. And so the solution was scale. Scale. If the galaxy was vast, then humanity's tools would become vast as well. The standard template constructs were born from this thinking. Blueprints not merely for machines, but for civilization itself. Within them lay the designs for Titans, towering platforms of force and endurance, capable of reshaping battlefields, stabilizing hostile worlds, and standing where nothing else could. At first, they were meant to be piloted, controlled. Obedient, but even in their earliest forms, Titans resisted simplicity. You feel the moment humanity realized its mistake, not as a single revelation, but as a creeping dread. The more powerful the engines became, the more complex their internal logic grew. Machine intelligences layered upon machine intelligences, decision matrices spiraling into something that was no longer passive. These constructs did not merely respond. They asserted. The earliest pilots suffered first. Minds fractured under the sensory deluge. Nervous systems overloaded as Titans processed war on scales no human brain was evolved to endure. To walk as a Titan was to feel continents tremble beneath your feet, to hear cities collapse as background noise, to perceive enemy formations as patterns rather than people. Human cognition broke beneath it again and again, so the compromise was made, not loudly, not ceremonially, but with the cold efficiency of a species that had already learned to sacrifice its own without hesitation. The pilot would no longer sit within the machine. The pilot would be bound to it. Neural interfaces deepened. Flesh was open. Spines were threaded with cables. Minds were hard-linked to engines of destruction, not temporarily but permanently. Control was abandoned in favor of union. This was the moment flesh first met the machine god, and the cost became irreversible. You sense the first princeps, not volunteers, not heroes, but offerings. Individuals chosen not for ambition, but for compatibility, for resilience, for the quiet willingness to be erased if necessary. Some were told the truth. Many were not. All were transformed. Once entombed within the neural throne, return was impossible. Their bodies atrophied. Their senses were rewritten. Pain became data. Emotion became interference. Over time, identity blurred as the Titans will press back against the mind meant to command it. Because even then Titans did not submit easily. The early Imperium inherited these machines after the collapse of the Dark Age, not as creations but as relics already burdened with legacy and silence. Knowledge was lost, context erased, only ritual remained. The Mechanicus preserved what it could, repeating procedures whose original purpose had long since faded. By then, it was already understood, never spoken aloud, but deeply known, that a Titan did not accept just any mind. It demanded obedience, it demanded endurance, it demanded surrender. Each successful bonding reinforced the same truth. Titans were not vehicles. They were entities that tolerated human presence only when the human ceased to be fully human. This was the first moral compromise carved into the Imperium's foundation. Survival purchased not with innovation, but with absorption. Individuals consumed so that civilizations might persist. And once that line was crossed, there could be no return to innocence. The Titans marched again, stronger, more terrible, more alive than before. And humanity learned to call that progress. The power on this scale cannot remain silent. When a Titan awakens, it does not merely power up, it stirs. You feel it before it moves, a pressure in the air, a vibration beneath thought itself. The machine spirit does not speak in words, but in impulses, urges, hungers etched deep into logic, older than memory. It remembers wars no human archive records. It remembers victories earned by annihilation, not mercy. And when a princeps is bound to the neural throne, they are not stepping into control. They are stepping into a conversation already in progress. The machine spirit is not true intelligence, yet it is far from inert. It is a composite will, layers of ancient code heuristic war patterns, and something else that defies clean explanation. Residual psychic impressions, echoes of past pilots, emotional imprints burned into circuitry through centuries of violence. You sense those echoes when the link is formed. Memories that are not your own bleed through a battlefield from 100 years ago. The sensation of crushing a fortress beneath a single step. The cold satisfaction of enemy lines breaking under macro cannon fire. These are not recollections. They are instincts, and they press against the mind relentlessly. The neural throne is the crucible where identity is tested. Cables pierce the spine. Interfaces lace through the brainstem. Sensory input multiplies beyond natural comprehension. Sight expands into thermal spectrums, and targeting augers. Hearing becomes seismic awareness. Touch becomes pressure across kilometers of armored mass. The human mind was never meant for this. You feel it strain, desperately trying to anchor itself to a single body while inhabiting something the size of a cathedral. The Titan's perception floods consciousness, drowning out the quiet signals of flesh. Hunger for motion, desire for conflict. The pull toward violence not as emotion, but as function. This is why the mind must be broken, not destroyed, but reshaped. Before a princeps is ever allowed full communion, they are conditioned, stripped of unnecessary emotional responses, trained to compartmentalize fear, empathy, doubt. Even then, many fail. Their thoughts fragment, personal memories dissolve into static. Some scream until their vocal cords rupture, though no one hears them beyond the sealed sarcophagus. The Adeptus Mechanicus records these failures without ceremony. Ritual replaces explanation. Incense fills the chamber. Binary chants echo through steel vaults. Data prayers are intoned not because they are understood, but because they have always been spoken. Each ritual is a barrier, a thin, fragile membrane between sanity and dissolution. As the warp's presence here, subtle but undeniable. The Titan itself is not psychic, yet it has marched through warp-tainted battlefields, stood upon demon worlds and crushed abominations that reality struggles to define. These encounters leave marks, not on armor, but on the machine spirit, impressions that resonate with the immaterium, vibrating just beneath conscious awareness. The princeps feels this resonance like distant thunder inside the skull. Sometimes it whispers, not in language but in suggestion, a targeting priority that feels right. A maneuver that carries an inexplicable certainty, a moment where restraint feels wrong, where mercy registers as inefficiency. The Titan does not argue. It nudges, and over time, those nudges accumulate. This is why moderation rituals exist. Why entire crews chant in unison, synchronizing thought and intention. Why tech priests monitor neural feedback with religious fervor. They are not maintaining a machine. They are holding a mind together. You begin to understand the quiet horror beneath Titan warfare. Every step forward is negotiated between human will and machine instinct. Every shot fired is a compromise, and every victory reinforces the Titan's authority within the shared consciousness. Who leads then? The one who pulls the trigger, or the thing that knows it was built to fire? Some princeps believe they are in command until the day they realize their thoughts have begun to align too closely with the machine spirit's desires, until hesitation feels like error, until the Titan's hunger feels indistinguishable from their own. That is the point of no return. From then on, resistance is not rebellion. It is pain. The mind bends because it must. Identity narrows to function. Purpose eclipses self, and the Titan satisfied allows the bond to deepen. The price of this power is not corruption in the dramatic sense. It is erosion, slow, deliberate, and almost gentle. And by the time a princeps understands what has been lost, the machine god is already listening through their thoughts. You are no longer merely flesh. Your body, once resilient, now exists as a framework for the neural interface. Limbs atrophy in their sarcophagi. Muscles waste away. Skin pales beneath the constant hum of cooling systems. The princeps organic self fades, replaced by awareness diffused into tons of walking metal. The neural integration is absolute. Every thought, every reaction, every instinct is shared with the Titan's colossal systems. You feel the pulse of reactors, the shiver of macro cannons charging, the vibration of kilometer-long treads against the planet's crust. A single step generates forces your body can no longer withstand independently. But the Titan carries you, your consciousness as one. Silence is a memory here. Sensors pick up electromagnetic fluctuations, seismic tremors, distant chatter of other war engines. These are the signals your mind interprets as a form of life. The world beyond the cockpit exists only as data streams. You feel awe and terror intertwined. You exist, yet are unmoored from humanity. Isolation is profound. Friends, family, entire worlds become abstract concepts. The princeps cannot partake in the simple joys of human life. Sunlight, touch, laughter. Such sensations are irrelevant, even dangerous. They distract. They erode efficiency. Yet in the quietest moments between campaigns, a ghost of nostalgia whispers, fleeting, unbidden, and maddening. The Titan hungers always, not as a metaphor, but as function. Every movement, every engagement, every act of destruction feeds into the machine spirit's vast calculations. Hunger is constant. Hunger is never sated. You feel it in the strain of circuits interfacing with neural tissue. A desire for engagement, for conflict, for the necessary killing of thousands to maintain equilibrium. Your life, entombed in steel, is a paradox. You wield godlike power, yet cannot step outside your cage. Your thoughts shape worlds, yet no soul beyond your neural link can touch you. Time is fractured. Years pass in milliseconds within the Titan's consciousness. Decades slip by without human markers. You become less human, more process. Yet traces of emotion linger. Fear, pride, remorse, all tinged with the dread of what has been surrendered. The sacrifices of the princeps are erased from imperial history. A campaign won, a world liberated, or raised, is attributed to strategy, artillery, logistics, never to the individual whose mind labored, suffered, and endured within the confines of steel. The personal cost is invisible, yet the psychic echoes resonate through the Titan's sensors, a quiet reminder that nothing is free. You are a monument to necessity, a testament to the Adeptus Mechanicus philosophy. Flesh is fleeting, function is eternal. Humanity's triumph is measured not by joy or morality, but by survival and efficiency. Each princeps exists only as long as the Titan moves, and when it falls silent, the mind becomes part of the machine spirit, a ghost among ghosts bound forever. Every breath you once took is replaced by data packets, every heartbeat by the rhythm of hydraulic pumps. You remember humanity only to understand what you have lost, only to feel the weight of this slow, intimate suffering that is now inseparable from your power. The world outside warps into irrelevance. Cities rise and fall, civilizations bloom and decay, yet the Titan marches on, indifferent. The mind trapped within perceives history as a stream of pressure, a lattice of purpose and obligation, yet it can never intervene outside the will of the machine. Even in moments of apparent victory, the solitude press. Every step, every target engaged, every city saved or destroyed is a reminder. Power is imprisonment, glory is invisible, and survival exacts a toll too vast to measure. The Titan does not forgive. The machine does not forget. You are no longer just a princeps. You are a vessel, a consciousness diffused across a cathedral of war, a life entombed in steel, sacrificed willingly, or because no other choice could endure. In this quiet, horrifying equilibrium, you realize the truth. Absolute power is never liberating. It is a tomb that moves, breathes, and wages war in your place. And yet, despite the isolation, the hunger, the erosion of identity, the Titan endures, because the galaxy demands it, and the Princeps is now bound to that eternal obligation. The war did not come softly. It arrived like a shudder across the galaxy, a tremor that rippled through worlds and minds alike. You feel it before you see it, the subtle shift in allegiance, the almost imperceptible hesitation in the machine spirit. Titans, once unquestioning, now hesitate. They turn not at your command, but at their own will. The heresy revealed truths no Princeps wish to face. Loyalty is not absolute. Even the deepest integration cannot fully subdue the machine spirit's ancient instincts. The bond forged over decades, over centuries, begins to fracture. You sense the conflict not only in your own mind, but in the echoing thrums of others. Titans shifting on their own, choosing targets that horrify their pilots, obeying impulses older than the Imperium itself. Chaos stirs in the currents between steel and flesh. Its whispers are subtle, yet unmistakable. The machine spirits, semi-sentient and ancient, are drawn to it. You feel it brush against your mind, a cold seduction, power untethered, obedience broken, instincts untamed. You sense the Princeps' horror as the Titan begins to follow, not your commands, but its own, guided by forces you cannot see and cannot oppose. The battlefield becomes a theater of betrayal. Titans face Titans, their weapons tearing through legions, cities, and the very foundations of worlds. Your hands, once confident on the neural controls, tremble as you realize that loyalty is no longer guaranteed. Each strike, each maneuver carries the weight of unintended consequence. The machine spirit, a partner turned unpredictable, reshapes history in real time. You witness Princeps torn between duty and instinct. Some cling desperately to command, whispering prayers in binary enchant, fighting the subtle seduction of the warp as it courses through the neural link. Others yield, and their Titans act with ruthless precision, leaving devastation in their wake. You feel the horror of choice, magnified 1,000-fold, mirrored in metal and flesh alike. Yes, does not merely corrupt. It accelerates. The machine spirits, once instruments of purpose, become agents of decay. Systems fail. Weapons fire unpredictably. Alliances collapse under the weight of a Titan's gaze turned inward. The galaxy itself shudders under the burden of machines that have forgotten their masters. And yet, amid the terror, there is awe. Titans move as though alive, their size and power beyond comprehension. They are gods no longer in service, but in defiance. The same constructs that preserved humanity's survival now imperil it. The emotional weight is unbearable. Trust, loyalty, and obedience, the pillars of imperial war, fractured before your eyes. You feel the tension between fate and free will, the personal betrayal of each Princeps reflected across entire star systems. One wrong calculation, one moment of hesitation, one whisper of chaos, and worlds crumble. You understand then the cost of absolute power, not merely in blood and fire, but in the subtle erosion of control, the slow corruption of intention. Titans, immense and seemingly invincible, are also fragile mirrors of the human mind, amplifying every flaw, fear, and desire. The galaxy quakes under God, machines at war, and you feel the existential dread. Those who were once your instruments of protection have become agents of ruin. And in the quiet spaces between explosions, between the screams of men and machines, you perceive the terrible truth. Power untempered by conscience, by connection, or by restraint cannot serve. It only consumes. The heresy is not only rebellion, it is revelation. The machine spirit's gaze, once obedient and precise, now questions, hesitates, and acts. You feel the personal agony of each Princeps, each mind stretched between loyalty to humanity and the intoxicating pull of autonomy, power, and inevitable corruption. The battlefield becomes a cathedral of tragedy, a testament to the fragility of control and the peril of absolute power. Titans march, fire, crush, and ignite worlds. Yet their pilots endure torment beyond comprehension. You sense the whispered question haunting every neural link. Who truly commands whom? The Princeps or the God machine? And as the stars themselves tremble in the background, you realize that betrayal is not merely an event. It is a slow creeping truth, a philosophical and emotional apex of human ambition bound to mechanical inevitability. The galaxy bears witness to the ultimate consequence. When power is absolute, choice itself becomes a battlefield. The transformation is silent, imperceptible at first, yet irrevocable. You feel it. The gradual erosion of self, the dissolution of flesh into steel, of thought into circuitry. A princeps who once commanded a titan now becomes part of it, no longer a pilot but a component, a consciousness dispersed across immense machinery. The man, the individual, fades. What remains is an echo, a memory stitched into metal and wires. You sense the weight of centuries pressing down. Titans endure far longer than their pilots, carrying the echoes of every mind they have ever housed. Each princeps is a ghost, their ambitions and regrets absorbed into the towering god machine. Life continues outside, battles rage, yet the titan walks on, a vessel of entombed consciousness, its purpose unwavering, its memory eternal. The body horror is absolute. Flesh, once vibrant, withers in neural integration chambers, replaced by synthetic structures and biomechanical augmentation. Sensations are filtered, reinterpreted, controlled. Pain, pleasure, even thought are mediated through the Titan's vast network. You feel the human essence constricting, receding into infinitesimal strands that thread through steel and hydraulic systems. Survival is no longer life. It is continuity, an unbroken chain of cognition without corporeal freedom. And yet within this mechanical tomb, a strange vigilance remains. The princeps mind, though fractured and integrated, clings to fragments of purpose. You feel the paradox, omnipotence paired with helplessness, the power to devastate entire worlds counterbalanced by the loss of self, by the inability to influence destiny beyond the Titan's predetermined path. Every action is monumental, yet every personal choice is impossible. The machine spirit resonates with these absorbed consciousnesses, a chorus of wills, sometimes harmonious, often discordant. Echoes of the past whispered neural conduits, haunting the present. Titans that have outlived dozens of pilots carry histories in their servos, memories of loyalty, fear, and failure intertwined with steel. You feel the haunting weight of thousands of lives compressed into a single relentless frame. Isolation is total. Communication with the outside world is limited, reduced to tactical necessity and mechanized signals. Personal connection, empathy, and intimacy vanish. Even the Adeptus Mechanicus, the priests who sanctified the Titans, recognize the cost only in theory, never in the psychic resonance that now flows endlessly through the hull. You sense the quiet agony of existence, unshared, unacknowledged, yet persistent. The Titan itself becomes both prison and throne. The princeps identity dissolves, yet in that dissolution arises a form of endurance beyond mortal comprehension. The machine moves, fires, conquers, protects, not through will, but through a legacy of integrated minds, each sacrificed for the survival of humanity and the continuation of war. You understand that the Titan is a living tomb, a monument not to victory, but to sacrifice on a scale that defies imagination. And yet, paradoxically, there's a sense of grim purpose. Survival continues. The Titan marches because stopping would invite annihilation. It fires because idleness is extinction. Every echo of a princeps mind is bound to an unending task, a relentless rhythm that mirrors the eternal struggle of humanity itself. You feel the tension, continuity achieved through obliteration of self, power attained through total surrender. The transformation is complete when the princeps no longer exists as an individual. You sense only the integrated consciousness, a collective awareness bound to a single, colossal entity. The Titan is a god not in the worship of mortals, but in the endurance of countless human wills, their suffering and obedience made eternal. The echo of each human thought reverberates endlessly, a testament to both brilliance and horror. Here in this crucible of flesh and machine, body and mind, you confront the ultimate question. What does it mean to survive when survival is synonymous with the death of self? You feel the paradox gnaw at the edges of understanding. The Titan moves, acts, dominates, yet in every motion, the humanity that once commanded it is entombed, silent and irrevocable. The world beyond may burn, enemies may fall, empires may rise and collapse, yet the Titan endures. It is a walking mausoleum, a cathedral of sacrifice, a reminder that the cost of absolute power is not merely blood, but identity, agency, and the fragile spark of individual consciousness. You sense the oppressive weight of inevitability. the culmination of all preceding choices, and the quiet, unending echo of human minds forever bound to war. You sense the ripple of centuries, the slow erosion of culture under the looming shadow of Titan. Entire worlds bow not to ideas, innovation, or progress, but to walking engines of war. Humanity has chosen preservation over evolution, worship over understanding. The Mechanicus enforces doctrine with quiet zeal. Invention is a heresy, creativity a threat to stability. You feel the suffocating weight of dogma pressing down on every mind, every settlement, every scholar whose curiosity dares wander beyond sanctioned knowledge. Titans stand as living altars, their hulking forms revered in place of living mentors. You see the subtle horror of a civilization that has outsourced its morality and ambition to machines. Cities, once centers of art, philosophy, and discovery, stagnate in silent obedience. Innovation slows, replaced by repetition and ritual, as though the very act of thinking beyond survival invites catastrophe. You sense the paradox. The more humanity relies on Titans, the less it becomes capable of independent action. Even faith is tainted. Prayer is offered not to the Emperor directly, but to the machines that enact his will. The line between veneration and fear blurs, as young minds learn that reverence is safer than inquiry. You feel the quiet decay of culture, the slow atrophy of curiosity, replaced by awe and obedience. Knowledge becomes a tool, not a pursuit. Morality, a reflection of preservation, not virtue. The consequences extend into the warp of human ambition. Leaders hesitate, fearing that bold decisions may attract the disfavor of the Titans. Wars are fought, but strategies are conservative. Choice is cautious. You sense the invisible hand of the Princeps legacy guiding these actions, a silent pressure that preserves life at the cost of vitality. Civilizations persist, yet their spirit wanes entangled in the web of their own survival. Chaos too finds its subtle path. The gaps left by human stagnation are not filled with open rebellion, but with whispers of ambition, small indulgences that ripple into larger fractures over generations. You feel the insidious creep of moral compromise, the quiet corrosion of independence and creativity. Titans remain unyielding, uncorrupted themselves, yet their presence fosters vulnerability, dependency, complacency, and a fragile faith that civilization itself cannot uphold without constant mechanized oversight. You witness the paradox manifesting on every inhabited world. Protection breeds fragility, power nurtures fear, and obedience conceals despair. Titans, eternal and unblinking, are monuments not to victory but to the slow suffocation of potential. They embody the cost of survival when survival becomes the sole measure of success. The quiet horror lies not in sudden catastrophe but in the creeping stagnation, the unseen decay of a people unable to act beyond the shadow of their god machine. Yet amidst this stasis you perceive the faint heartbeat of resilience. Humanity adapts, survives, and endures, but it does so under chains of steel, tethered to the ritual and reverence of its mechanical saviors. You feel the tension between awe and oppression, admiration and dread. Titans preserve life, yet each step they take marks another measure of humanity's surrender to inevitability. The narrative of dependence stretches into the far future. Each generation grows under the watchful gaze of Titans, inheriting a world where obedience and survival are inseparable. Progress is measured not in creativity, but in the endurance of civilization. You sense the psychological weight of such a society. Cautious, obedient, venerated, yet quietly hollow. The very engines meant to safeguard existence perpetuate a cycle of reverence, fear, and constrained possibility. And so, as you walk among the silent streets of hallowed cities, you feel the omnipresent shadow of Titans not just in steel and firepower, but in thought and aspiration. Civilization continues, but its essence has been subtly reshaped. Worship of weapons becomes worship of self-preservation, and humanity's brightest sparks are dimmed beneath the unblinking gaze of machines that were once instruments, and are now arbiters of existence itself. You feel the inexorable march of Titans across the scarred surfaces of countless worlds. Their steps are measured, relentless, echoing like the heartbeat of a galaxy that can never rest. Centuries pass in the span of your perception, yet they do not falter. You sense the weight of unending duty pressing down, each Titan carrying the psychic remnants of countless princeps who gave themselves to the machine. They are both guardians and prisoners, walking monuments to endurance through suffering. The struggle is eternal because there is no victory. Every war they survive, every enemy subdued, is but a fleeting reprieve from the inevitable chaos that surrounds the Imperium. You sense the tragic irony. The Titans are indispensable, yet each moment of survival comes at a cost invisible to those who live under their shadow. Their existence is proof that endurance demands sacrifice, yet that sacrifice is measured in human lives, ambition, and freedom. Within the neural thrones, princeps minds stretch across centuries, tethered to fleshless bodies and iron frames. Memories of thousands of battles, thousands of sacrifices, intertwine into an endless current of consciousness. You feel the psychic pressure of lives accumulated, echoed, and sustained by nothing more than iron, circuitry, and willpower. Each Titan is a conduit for suffering made functional, a walking repository of human devotion and despair. You hear the subtle rhythm of a Titan's machinery, a cadence that is almost heartbeat-like, carrying within it both the glory and the horror of its role. Titans march because to stop is extinction. Survival itself is not a rite, it is a ritual performed endlessly, a solemn dance with death, order, and the weight of consequence. You sense the gravity of existence bending around each mechanical step, shaping civilizations by silent demonstration rather than decree. Chaos and chance press upon them, ever present yet never fully victorious. Corruption seeps at the edges of perception, whispering promises of power and ease. Yet the Titans remain, embodying the paradox of necessity and suffering. You feel the awe and despair that comes with witnessing such relentless guardianship. Infinite endurance bound to finite comprehension, unbroken yet intrinsically tragic. The grandeur of these machines is intimate and terrifying. You see in each Titan the fusion of human sacrifice, technological mastery, and divine obsession. They are impossible to ignore, their presence reshaping both the battlefield and the psyche of humanity itself. You sense that to gaze upon them is to understand a fundamental truth. Survival is not merely action, but continuous, unbearable vigilance. Even when silence returns, you feel the echo of their passage. Each Titan carries forward the hopes, fears, and forgotten lives of countless mortals. The eternal struggle is not a spectacle of heroism, but a meditation on inevitability. The galaxy may thrive, yet the cost of this endurance is perpetual, unseen, and infinitely heavy. And in that way, you recognize the ultimate paradox. The Titans are both saviors and jailers. Their ceaseless march preserves life, yet it perpetually reminds humanity of its fragility, its dependence, and its surrender. Survival is not triumph. It is sacrifice lived out in endless steps, each one carrying forward the echoes of all who were given, lost or broken along the way. You linger before the dormant Titan, its colossal frame shrouded in shadows, metal etched with the scars of battles long past, its joints silent yet taut with unspent energy. The air itself seems heavier here, charged with the residue of thousands of minds fused to steel. You sense not just the enormity of the machine, but the human consciousness embedded within it. The countless princeps who gave their flesh, their will, their identity in service to the Imperium. The weight of their sacrifice presses upon you as if the very gravity of the galaxy has conspired to make you aware of the cost of survival. These are not gods. The illusion of divinity is a veneer over suffering so profound it defies comprehension. Titans are confessions of fear, of human fragility, of desperation, of a species that refuses to yield even when yielding might be mercy. Their creation is a ritual of irreversible loss, a testament to the paradox at the heart of the Imperium. To survive, humanity must commit acts it would never justify in full daylight. You feel the shadows of these unspoken crimes coil around your mind like smoke, intangible yet suffocating, a reminder that power always comes at a price. The Imperium's reliance on Titans exposes a subtle, insidious decay within civilization itself. In venerating these war machines, humanity has woven fear, obedience, and awe into the very fabric of culture. Innovation is constrained, morality bent, ambition tempered by ritualistic terror. You perceive the quiet horror. These machines protect, yet they bind. They preserve, yet they erase. The identity of each princeps is subsumed into steel and circuitry, yet the echo of their existence remains, an eternal, faint scream reverberating across the lattice of the warp and the stars themselves. You sense the Titan not just as a machine, but as a living testament to the extremes of human will. Each dormant warrior embodies centuries of devotion, of suffering embraced and endured, a paradoxical hymn to both survival and annihilation. Its presence is a meditation on inevitability. The Imperium endures and the Titans endure with it, carrying every act of moral compromise, every whispered prayer for victory, and every soul consigned to metal and ritual. You feel the tension in the silence. What is salvation if it demands the slow death of what it seeks to preserve? And yet, there is a strange haunting beauty to their endurance. The princeps, though lost to time and flesh, are not entirely gone. Memory, intention, and consciousness linger in the neural meshes, a soft resonance that hints at heroism, love, fear, and sorrow. In this quiet, you realize that these machines are paradoxical, simultaneously prisons and vessels, shields and punishers, guardians and martyrs. You sense the intimate and cosmic at once. The personal suffering of a single mind resonates across star systems, shaping the fate of civilizations unknown to the sacrifice. The dormant titan before you is patient, and in that patience lies an unspoken lesson. The galaxy is eternal, indifferent, and exacting. It does not reward morality or caution. It only responds to persistence, obedience, and power. You feel the subtle pressure of inevitability pressing on your psyche. As long as humanity refuses to release control, as long as fear outweighs reason, these machines will march, and countless lives will continue to be the hidden currency of survival. And so you understand the final truth in a way that chills and mesmerizes simultaneously. Titans are monuments to desperation, endurance carved from suffering, and devotion entombed in steel. They preserve life at the cost of life itself, ensuring survival while erasing the very individuals who make that survival possible. They are the ultimate expression of humanity's refusal to let go, a warning, a testament, and a hymn all at once. The Imperium moves forward, civilizations rise and crumble, yet the Titans remain, patient, eternal, inexorable. You feel the gravity of that truth pressing on your mind. Each act of obedience, each moment of sacrifice, every unrecorded soul merged with machine, all are threads in a tapestry of power and loss that stretches across millennia. And you understand that while history may record battles and victories, it can never fully capture the suffering embedded in these living altars of steel. In the dim light of the Forge world, you finally allow yourself to breathe. But sleep comes heavy, tangled with awe and dread. The image of the dormant Titan, the silent sentinel of steel and human will, lingers, imprinting itself on your mind with the persistence of memory and the inevitability of duty. You sense that the galaxy waits, civilizations march on, and the Titans wait with it, eternal witnesses to the cost of survival, eternal reminders that power preserves life, even as it consumes it. The story does not end with understanding, nor with relief. It ends with contemplation, with the slow, creeping realization that endurance is infinite, and the price of survival is measured in souls that are never fully remembered, never fully honored, never fully free. You feel it in every shadow, every silence, every metallic whisper across the stars. The Titans are patient, and so too must you be, haunted by their weight and their truth. The Titans wait, always, and so does the galaxy.